The biggest battle we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will share concepts, universal laws, and interviewing individuals who have done just that, who have gone through the dark times and through those moments allowed their light to shine bright. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast and taking this journey with me as we discover different avenues to break through those limits, expand your reality, and evolve into the person you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on the Mindful Experiment. This is your host, Dr. Vic, as in this episode, it's always me just sharing some concepts, insights, things that can hopefully help empower your reality, help you empower your life, and to really just give you some things to create some transformation, or even more importantly, awareness and deep insight. So in today's episode, I was going through a meditation, and this message kept coming to me, and I kept seeing things. And usually I'll get a message, and then I'll start to see things, and I see a pattern, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm feeling like this is something I need to discuss or go through or meditate on. And it's funny because in the personal development world, and this happens in all things now, I mean, it's very popular. It's not something that just one arena does it. But I call it the copycat syndrome. And what that is people will copy what someone says, and they turn it over, and they change just a little bit of it, and they make it theirs. And it really is all the same stuff. There's no difference. It's just how they package it, material it, and so forth, and kind of puts it there. And it's funny because I was doing some research for a workshop that I'm doing in February, and it was funny how I kept pulling up articles, just blogs and articles, because I was looking for research. And it was funny how the same blogs and articles have very similar, like, step-by-step processes. Like, here's my 5, here's my 5, here's my 5 things. And I was just like, it's so fascinating how they copy one another. And the material just is the same stuff, just shared over and changed around a little bit. I see this a lot in people who do quotes. They'll like change one word out of there, or change that one aspect of the word and say, "Oh, this is my quote." And I see this constantly. And the reason why I'm bringing this all up, if you're a business owner, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you have a career working at a 9 to 5 or whatever it may be that you do, the one thing I really encourage is to share your uniqueness, okay? Because in life, when we look at this from a soul, spiritual perspective, all right, I get a little bit of some quantum mechanics in here. It's called the poly-exclusion principle, and what that means is there is no two that are alike in the entire universe. Now let's take that to Earth, in the physical realms, being a human being. There are no two humans to ever come to the planet and be the same. It's impossible. So yet, we're going to copy a famous quote, we're going to copy the new terminology people are using, we're going to copy and be a product of our environment instead of us being a product of ourselves. And what I mean by that is this. How many times do we let our environment, let our culture, let our life condition us? Millennials, they think a certain way. They have a certain aspect of things. Is the X generation, or you look at Democrats or the Republicans. How many things are we going to let limit ourselves and label ourselves and mute ourselves away from who we really are? I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being a Democrat or a Republican or being a millennial. That's not where I'm going with the message. The message is to, how do you find your uniqueness in it? How do you shine differently than what people are doing? Because as a coach, as a mindset catalyst, the things I look for is to break down the programming. People who work with me on one-on-one and group coaching, that's a lot of what we do. Program the brain in a different perspective. Come to a point of being focused on you, so then we can get you to evolve and really rediscover your greatness and allow you to live an empowered reality. So that's the key when it comes to this. So when you're thinking about it, I mean, just look at life. How many times do we say something and you heard a cute phrase and now you use it all the time? Again, nothing wrong with that, but is that you? Are you saying it just because it's cool? A lot of people are using it. Or is it because that is you in your sense? And so how do you beat to your own drum? How do you create your own uniqueness, your legacy, and so much more? How do you really let yourself shine, the truth of your inner self, and let that come out? Because we live in a society today, and the way the earth is changing, 2019, the energies of earth, whether you believe this or you don't, doesn't matter. It's going to happen. It's happening regardless. Is truth doesn't have to come out more. You're going to have to live more authentically to you and your values. And you're going to go through stuff. Pain is usually the indicator of this. In order for someone to become more aware and understand and appreciate their life and the things they do. So when you look at yourself, look at and see what's really you and what's not. How much are you programmed and conditioned, and how much are you unprogrammed and conditioned? Because let me just tell you, based on the numbers, I'm just keeping this very scientific. 95% of people live a subconscious mind, a subconscious life, which means you're just running a tape every single day and nothing's really new, exciting, and different. And you just do without ever realizing the being part, which is your consciousness side. And in Eastern philosophy, Oriental type of thinking, Zen, Taoism, and so forth, and Yin and Yang, we live in a society that's very Yang-oriented. Do. And we don't have enough Yin. And so it's one of those things to, how do we balance that and get that more in a balanced state? So one of the things that I usually teach and I share a lot on is you have to learn how to tap back into your intuition. You have to learn how to tap back into you can say your heart center, your intuition, your divine guidance, your truer self, higher self. You can call this whatever you want. Labels don't matter. It's still going to be there. It still exists. And so the thing is, it's whatever works for you. The thing, though, is how do you tap into that? Okay? Because that's the key of you setting and living your path and doing what you matters most to you. That's the key to really living the life that you desire to live. Because when you connect to your intuition, you let your intuition guide you. You will make the choices that your soul needs to experience. You'll make the choices that you need to have to go through because you chose this before coming into this life. And what's very interesting about that is now all of a sudden you're more in harmony, you're more in coherence and resonance with your higher purpose. And now self-fulfillment, in higher levels of joy come in. Peace and calmness. You go through hard times, but you kind of know that that's what you had to go through. It's like you can handle it a lot better. It's a whole different process. But you have to let your intuition guide you. Now, for many different people, intuition, how you use it, or how you know it's coming through, is different for everybody. Some people feel it in their stomach. Some feel it in their heart. Some get a feeling. Some get a twitch. Some get this. I mean, there's so many variables. But the thing is, you just got to go with your intuition, and you've done this before, many different times. You've worked with your intuition to a state to where you've made a choice. Didn't know why you have to make that choice, but you knew it was the right choice. You went and go ahead and made it, and all of a sudden, everything worked out for the better. Right? You've been there before. So the next time that happens, be aware of what that feeling was. Okay? Be aware of what came up and what was that inner guidance, that inner knowing. Because I remember being a child, I used to have these feelings all the time. And, being kids, I came off as like a Mr. Know-It-All. I thought I knew it all too back then. But one of the things I realized was I wasn't wrong a lot. Like, there was time, I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm not. Even to this day, I'm like, yep, still get things wrong all the time. It's exciting when I do. But it's one of those things where I started to realize that I just knew things, and I didn't know why. And I grew up with kids who were a lot older than me, anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 years older. And it was funny because they would be like, oh, you think you know it all, blah, blah, blah. And then a month later, or 4 months later, or sometime later down the road, I was right. And the thing was, I didn't know why I was right. I never understood why. I didn't have and it's still to this day, like I make choices based on my intuition. And I could talk about something, and I may not have a clue of what I may not have like a great idea of it, but I trust my intuition. And I'm usually never wrong with it because your intuition will always guide you to what you need and always help you in your process. And I've learned to revisit back that because, as a kid, we all have it. And then at some point in life, 7, 10, 8, 9, for me it was about 12 years old, I started to really shun it away. And I just started to believe that, okay, maybe I don't have this intuition. Maybe I'm talking to people and they're telling me something different than what I feel. So maybe that my feelings are wrong. And then I eventually just accepted it in right around high school. It was 8th grade, high school. High school is really what started to do that. And it took me time in my 20s and late 20s and getting into my early 30s to start to revisit that. And now I'm 35 in this recording. It's one of those things now that I trust 100%. I don't judge it. And I made business decisions on it. 4 years ago, I moved my office. I went from a 780 square foot chiropractic office using every inch possible to a 3,000 square foot office. And I mean, you're talking just shy of 4 times the size. And I wanted to have that office because there was a grand vision what I wanted to do. But one of the things is when I looked at the finances, I talked to my accountant about it. She gave me a ratio, and she's like, this is not good. You're 2.5 times over for rent of what you want to be based on your sales. And I was just like, I just know I need to make this decision. I said, we'll see what happens in 6 months. Lo and behold, I just felt I needed to make that decision. Didn't know why, but I just knew within I had to. And I had all the metrics were telling me something different. All the logic, the numbers and everything was saying not a smart move. If I looked at all my growth in the last 3 years, it would have said you're growing, but the pace of where you need to get to be profitable and really thrive, it's going to be a haul. I mean, I had to grow my business by 50% just to be really, really solid. That year we grew by almost 89%. We killed it that year. It was just we knew what we wanted. We were clear on the vision, and I just let intuition guide me. And I always believe that when you let your intuition guide you, and this is my experience in life, guys, and I've worked with people and I teach them this and help them become more aware of it, and it's amazing what comes up, is that when you let your intuition guide you, it will always guide and lead you to where you need to be. And that's the beauty of divine timing. Everything happens for a reason. That's true. Nothing in the universe is ever not done without a purpose. But you are always leading that path, too, by what you choose and your perception of things also. So there's a couple of things that overlay with that. But the key point I'm trying to make is that when you let intuition guide you, it takes you right to where you need to be. And that's happened so many times in my life. When I was going to become a chiropractor and finishing up school, I'll never forget, I graduated in September. And it was that year, it was April 2009. And I remember feeling like I needed to go back home, like eventually after school, go home. There was a pulling, there was a calling. Something told me I had to go home. Now, just to give you guys a little backstory, I never planned on going back home. I was actually talking to a couple of chiropractors and trying to go work in Italy. I was like, I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go study out there and go maybe start a practice in Italy. I think that'd be fun. I can go live in a small town, enjoy the culture. I'll be in Europe. I could travel all over. There was a lot of things, and I was making connections, and it was all working out, and I had some stuff set up where I had a position that I had some guys that were like, yeah, we're looking to expand our office, so love to have you come. Your resume is outstanding, unbelievable. We'll have you, and no problem. Come out, visit, we'll talk, and then you come back, 5 months later, and we can make it all happen. So I was like, cool. But something told me I had to go home. And I'll never forget, I ended up turning down going there, and I just said, I'm going to go home. I don't know why, but I'm going to have to. And it's one of those inner knowings that you just trust. And it was interesting because when I did come back home, 2 months later, my grandfather had a mini stroke. And I was very close. I'm very close to my grandparents. They both passed now, but I was very, very close to them. And so when he had that, I was like, telling him, Baba, this is it. Next one you have is going to take you out. I know your health. You need to change things. And unfortunately, he did not. And in July, he suffered a stroke. And that led him down the path where 6-7 months later, he passed away. And I sat back and I was just like, okay, maybe this is why I needed to be home. because it would have tore me apart if I couldn't come back and I couldn't be there and all that stuff. It would have just torn me apart. But there were so many other things that led up to that, and I think sometimes too, when you're, some people say, well, it's just what you're looking for. Well, it's true, but I also look at, well, why am I here? I'm asking those deep questions. Why, what was really why I had to be back here? And time will always give you the answers, and it'll show up, and it's just and everything just led up from one thing to the next, and it was really amazing how I had to meet this chiropractor who ended up letting me work in her office, and I got me started, and the people I've met and the things that just lined up has been unreal. And so the whole point of why I share these stories with you guys is just to give you some proof. I mean, I have so many of these, but the key thing is that it will always guide you to where you want to be. I mean, I practice in a town now that I never thought I would have been. I never thought I'd be in downtown, the downtown area of LaGrange, Illinois. I just never did. I knew about the town. I was familiar with it, and I had ideas of going somewhere else. But it's just the way things lined up. That's where I ended up being, and I just knew I had to be there. Don't know why, but I just knew I had to be there. And so that's the certainty. You see, I didn't have to think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the process was all like, oh, yep, that's where I have to go, and that's it. My mind kicked in and was like, oh, no, what about this? You got to look at this. What about this factor? And it just went all over the place. I'm a very left-brain individual. Type A personality, task-oriented, goal-oriented, and so forth. So you can just imagine. But I still have this very deep intuitive side, spiritual side. So I use that. And it kind of helps balance it as much as possible sometimes. Sometimes there's raging wars. But the key thing, though, is that trusting, as I'm getting older, I'm learning to trust that more. And that's why I'm so less stressed, not as anxious, not having much anxiety and so much more, because I know that the universe always has serving my highest good. I know the universe is always working for me. And so I've seen it in my life every step of the way, even when I went bankrupt and so much more, even when I couldn't move for 8 months, and I couldn't really move that well, I should say, for 8 months, and questioning if I can even be in my office, serving and adjusting patients. It comes to that point where you just have to trust and know that the universe is always working for you. And so it was one of those things where I kept trusting in that process, and it's amazing how things have turned out because I trusted in my intuition. I trusted me more than anything else. Because let me tell you, and this is funny, I've been talking about this for years, I've been in all this, and new research just comes out and says, wow, the intuitive mind is vastly more intelligent than your mind itself, the conscious thinking mind. And I'm like, duh. From a neurological standpoint, the brain can only handle, left side of the brain, your logical thinking, can only handle 7 bits information plus or minus 2, I think like per second or something like that. Where the right side of the brain can do 5 million plus or minus 2 per second, or give or take. Which has more higher computing power? The left brain is limited, compartmentalized, deduction type thinking, reducing type thinking. Right brain is the opposite. It's unlimited, infinite, and it's expansion type thinking. It's random. It's quantum. So you have your quantum mind, you have your logical mind, you have your spiritual mind, and you have your human mind. Human. That makes no sense. Human mind, but it's more your logical, more concrete, physical. And that's why the word human. If you ever look at the root word of human, it's hu and man, which hu is a term for God. I believe it's in Sanskrit, and then man is a term, obviously, physical. So it's the God image of man coming together, and it's kind of cool because the brains kind of have that perspective in it too. That's why women are mostly right brain dominant, and that's why women are more evolved than men are. Sorry, men, most women neurologically are more evolved and advanced than men are. Nothing wrong with that. That's why women, I always tell women, you want to be treated equally. And you don't want to be treated equally. That would be unfair to you. I understand where you're coming from on the equally type of side of things, which I totally agree 100%. But at the same token, as evolutionary, as neurologically, no, you guys are advanced. You guys deserve different treatments because you're more advanced and can take on more. So I digress. So when it comes back to your intuition, that is the thing you want to do. Focus on it. Let it guide you. Think of times that you've had in the past that really worked for you, that has worked, and then get used to that feeling. It's a feeling, it's an energy, it's a presence, and when you know that and you get used to it, the more you train your brain to learn that, the more receptive it comes, like training a muscle, and the better you're going to get with this, to where it's going to let you thrive in your life and let your soul guide you. Some call it the soul's compass, the soul's navigator, so many other things. But you want to let that guide you, because that's going to give you the path of where you want to go. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you guys thought. Go on my Facebook page, Dr. Vic Manzo, and check that out. Throw some comments on this. Let me know what you guys think of this the interview and the recording here in the episode. And any way I can help, just let me know. Shoot me an email at drvic@empoweryourreality.com. I'm here to help serve and help you guys thrive. Check out what we're up to at empoweryourreality.com. We have a lot of stuff coming up. We have another new a vision program coming up at the end of March, beginning of April. We had a good sign up, amazing individuals we're going through right now. We are coming up with a lot of stuff in the next couple months that's going to be really some mind-blowing things, where you can have group setting one-on-one with me once a month, and we can discuss anything in the world and really help empower a group that we'll build our tribe. This year our whole goal is to build a tribe so huge that, and it's not about the size, let me take that back. It's not really about how making it massive. I'm not really about that type. I just want to make a group and a tribe where I have individuals who are there and they are, can want to truly create a transformation in their life, and hopefully together as a community we can do that together to help each and every one of us. So check it out. I do have a private Facebook group that we're growing right now called Empowered Living with Dr. Vic. Just go ahead and request that you want to be a part of it, and I'll get you accepted. And it's a group that we're growing pretty quick now. We're starting to put some energy into it now, and as we continue to grow that group, it's stuff that I share in daily insights, videos. I do once a week a video, just sharing on a concept, about 4 minutes or so, and create some good discussions and so much more. So definitely check that out. And as always, I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. Show some likes and some love if you like this episode. If you like the podcast, throw a review if you can. I greatly appreciate it. And as always, until next time, keep rocking and rolling.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you on the journey to rediscover who you really are. To connect with us on Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. Check us out on Twitter. The handle is Dr. Vic21. Follow us on Instagram, www.instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. If you were inspired by the podcast, pay it forward by sharing it with someone who you know can benefit from it. Thank you again for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast, sharing paths to help you rediscover your infinite potential.